I think I bought 2 of these for like $25 or $27.
Weck Jars.
The internet is currently up in arms over the newest it girl status symbol, the Weck Jar. Now you're probably wondering what on earth a Weck Jar even is. And a Weck Jar is a glass jar designed to make things like homemade sourdough bread. And you might be thinking, okay, the it girls are starting to make sourdough bread at home. We love productive hobby queens. But no. You would be sadly mistaken, because Weck Jars are getting so much hate online right now because they're not the new status symbol for people who make homemade bread. They are the new status symbol for the same matcha, iced coffee, Pilates girlies that have been constantly getting on people's last nerves for years. And I wanted to get to the root of why these jars went viral in the first place, and it looks like all roads lead to the Ballerina Farm. Ballerina Farm is a TikTok account with over 10 million followers run by Hannah Nealman. On her official TikTok shop account called Ballerina Farm Store, you can get 2 Weck Jars for $19, but thankfully they're 5% off right now, so they're actually going for the low price of $18.05. Yeah. There's a ton of controversy surrounding Hannah due to her being a tradwife TikToker and a pageant queen and a former professional ballerina who people see as giving up her dreams of being a professional ballerina and throwing away her Juilliard experience to get married and have 8 kids and live the farm life in Utah with a millionaire husband whose father owns JetBlue and a bunch of other companies. People are always pointing out a ton of red flags in her content, and they don't like the lifestyle she promotes to women or how her husband treats her. And there's one viral video when she's opening a gift and says that she hopes that it's a trip to Greece, and then it's an apron. And people did not like that. But the Ballerina Farm controversy is a whole nother video. But yes, Ballerina Farm's tradwife lifestyle is why Weck Jars went so TikTok viral as matcha and iced coffee cups after years of just being normal food storage jars from a German company. And if you go to the Weck website, you can get the most viral Weck Jar included in this combo pack on the Weck website. This 3-pack of different jars is around $18, but you only get one of the extremely sought after TikTok Weck Jar. Or you can get 6 viral ones for $23.40. And you might think the prices aren't that bad, especially if you're actually using it for its intended purpose. But once you realize that people are spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars collecting these glass jars for no rhyme or reason and just for aesthetics, it gets pretty hilarious. It would be one thing if people were actually using these for actually cool purposes like making things, fermenting, storing, but no. It's like, just drink the iced coffee, just drink the matcha. You have millions of glasses, mugs, and cups that you already have. Just be done with it. It literally is not that serious. Before we get into all this Weck Jar madness, thank you guys so much for 20,000 subscribers. You guys are seriously the best. And this has been a dream of mine for years, so I can't thank you guys enough. And if you aren't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button right now to help us reach our next community milestone. And don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and share it with your dog, your grandma, your cousin's neighbor, and everybody. Now back to the Weck Jar. Now, like I said, for some unknown reason, remember Stanley cups were the it girl status symbol? Yeah, now it's making and shaking and drinking iced coffee or matcha out of a Weck Jar. I guess Stanleys are kind of like on the decline, and now it's these glass jars that have those little glass lids, the little clips on the side, and they say Weck. People who have used Weck Jars for years before they were cool are really annoyed at this new trend, and they're extremely confused as to why it's now cool to drink matcha from them. And the funniest thing about this craze is that there's absolutely no point of using these jars to make matchas and iced coffees. And they're clearly not even marketed to be used for these drinks. So in the case of today's video, the company actually isn't the problem this time, thankfully. It's actually just the trend in the TikTokers. For now, because we don't know if Weck will pivot and lean into this entire craze. Hopefully they just stay like how they are. And if these Weck Jars were actually safe or practical for iced beverages, I would be completely fine with this. And it's like, who really cares? But look what happens when people try to use Weck Jars for aesthetics, views, and vibes on TikTok. Yeah, not safe at all. If you're not familiar with coffee and matcha TikTok, the TikTokers usually use these fancy ice cubes that are really big cubes, and you can get these molds for like the aesthetic giant ice cubes on the influencers' Amazon storefronts in their TikTok bios. But when the giant ice cubes hit the Weck jar, it's not pretty. And in this next video, she slams the glass straw down in the Weck jar to make it more like of an ASMR, more high view viral video. But somebody commented, please do not do this. My sister had to be hospitalized from doing that. I'm guessing her sister was probably hospitalized from extreme hand bleeding because the glass probably broke everywhere.
I'm happy I made this. I avoided buying a Weck jar for as long as I possibly could. Like, it's just a jar. I have my coffee cups, mason jars, pasta jars. Why would I need a Weck jar? The answer is, I don't know. One of those videos just really did me in. I had to get it. Let's go brew 2 shots right over this. And now we shake it up. Oh, this is hard. Now for the cold foam. Vanilla creamer, heavy cream, and maple syrup. Okay, it wasn't that thick. I'm excited to see what it looks like once I mix it. So I'm just gonna mix it up. Here we go.
Weck jars are also getting so much heat right now online because it's completely impractical to bring these jars with you in the car, because everybody's like, bring my matcha and my shaken espresso to Pilates class, get in the car with me. But everyone is pointing out how that could never fit in any cup holder. Like, yes, Weck sells skinnier jars and more like cylindrical ones, but the main trendy sought after Weck jar is the one that could never ever in a million years fit in a cup holder. If you have a Weck jar, let me know if it fits, but that looks pretty wide. And I already know that because these things are so impractical for the TikTok viral purposes, obviously they're practical for the actual purpose that they're made for, but the TikTokers are just taking this and running with it. And because with everything that TikTok takes a hold of, it sparks a huge boom on the TikTok shop. I already know that this is going to have this huge influx of items hitting the TikTok shop talking about, buy this special plastic cup holder insert that allows you to bring your Weck jar wherever you go. So it'll probably be like this random tube that you like put in your cup holder, and then it'll have like a wider, I don't want to be giving any TikTok shoppers ideas right now, but it would probably be like this rubber thing that goes above the cup holder and it's like really wide, and then you can put the Weck jar in it. But I can definitely see that happening because I already have seen some Weck accessories being sold on TikTok shop. And yes, it's for coffees and matchas and everything.
I love it. I mean, I'm so passionate about it.
And we already have seen how crazy everything got with Stanley accessories, with all the charms, the snackies, cup holder thing, people putting powdered donuts and Doritos on the Stanley, and like those inserts when you can put like half of one drink and half of another drink. And then they had that like boot at the end of it. And what else did they have? They had like the cap, the straw cap, and then they had your name charm, and then they had a little purse for the Stanley. But all these things never stopped the Stanley from spilling everywhere when it knocked over. But yeah, I have an extremely strong feeling that Weck jars are the new Stanley cups. And the scary thing is that there was so much bullying with the Stanley cup. Like if kids didn't have Stanleys, then they would just be like bullied all day at school. And now because it's August and it's gonna be back to school soon, I would not be surprised if we hear on the news, Weck jars banned from school systems, Weck jars knocking off desks, shattered glass everywhere in the classroom, kids sneaking Weck jars in their backpacks. And then there'll probably be some secret compartment backpack Weck jar insert on the TikTok shop. And just like Silly Bands got banned from my middle school, Weck jars will be the new target. And then the Weck company will be like, we were just trying to make storage containers, but what is this? And Weck jars are kind of making Stanleys look better because Weck jars fall into the entire beige mom, monochromatic, no life, too aesthetic entire trend where influencers just have everything clear, tan, cream, beige, and white, and then there's no life. But at least Stanleys, even though people were spending thousands on Stanleys, at least Stanleys were colorful, and at least they didn't break. Even that one Stanley didn't even break when it was in a car fire. But Weck jars can't even like hold an ice cube, but they're not even made for ice, so I guess it's not Weck's fault. But seriously, now let's take a look at some of the ways influencers are using Weck jars for vibes, aesthetic, and status. And no hate to these specific influencers, because even though I wouldn't personally buy a Weck jar unless it was like 10 cents, I do have an obsession with mugs and cups and glasses. Even though I don't overconsume them, I can just appreciate the aesthetic. Like whenever I see them in the store, I just really like them for some reason. So I see why people would want to buy glasses and everything. Like personally, I don't think Weck jars are that aesthetically pleasing. Like they kind of look like those glass jars that are sold at Dollar Tree to me. No hate to Weck, but literally I have a bunch of glass containers from Dollar Tree, and then just go to Dollar Tree. You don't need a Weck jar. Or don't even buy the things from Dollar Tree, just use the cups that are already in your cabinet. The thing that really just gets me about this trend is that there's absolutely no reason to be making iced drinks in these sourdough jars and these food storage jars. But here's the videos.
I'm making my TikTok return by showing you guys my first ever Weck jar matcha. Holy fucking shit. Like, look. You see this green? And I also used a new matcha powder that I swear, like, literally no one talks about on TikTok. At least I haven't seen it before. But I got it as a gift, and it's so good. Look at that froth. Oh my god. And I cold whisked it. This literally looks like I can fit a whole cup of soup. I'm drinking like a soup portion of matcha, and I've never been happier. Oh.
It's gonna be a good day. Let's make a brown sugar maple sea salt latte. Ice. Milk. Oops. For the espresso shot, I'm gonna do a spoonful of Swerve brown sugar, some maple syrup, cinnamon, and a little bit of salt. Double shot. I'm gonna make sure this is all mixed up. And now for creamer, I'm gonna do a little bit of Chobani coffee cake. And froth that. And I'm gonna put a little bit of cinnamon on top. Every single time.
I'm about to leave, so I want to take this to my workout class, but I want to see if this will hold the matcha in place. This chubby cup will for sure not fit in my cup holder, so someone also told me that I was putting on the clips backwards, so let's see if this works better. Okay, I think that's one. Okay, second one. I need to be sure that it's secure. I'm gonna flip it. Okay, wait. That works so well. I'm definitely doing this every time.
I feel like this needs to be documented. I just came home and I made myself a little coffee. Look at this baby Weck jar. Isn't it so cute? I think that's how you pronounce it, but it's so teeny tiny. This is the normal size for comparison. How cute.
And then the videos on TikTok that get people the most riled up are the My Weck Jar collection videos.
I have started a Weck collection, a Weck jar collection. I am so excited about it. It's taken me a little bit of time because some of these are hard to find, but let me show you what I have so far. I have this big one up here. I have the half. I have this little one. I have this really little one that I use for, I make like a strawberry puree sugar-free. And I'm the only one that eats it because I'm the only one that eats sugar-free here. So I just make a small amount, stick it in the fridge, and it'll last me a little bit. I have this one. I have this one here, and then I have this one that I feel is so hard to find. This is a 13 ounce, if anybody knows where to find these, other than the Weck website, because I don't want to order a whole case. Let me know. I really like the size. I want this one for my, what do you call it, my caramelized bananas. because I use half of it to make a syrup, but the other half I like to keep because I like the texture and I like the actual bananas in my drink and as a topping. So that's what I want this one for, but I do want a couple more of this size. And then I have these two that I just got, and yeah, that's it.
In response to all the influencers using Weck Jars, casual TikTokers are on the front lines making absolutely hilarious anti-Weck Jar videos. To de-influence everyone from buying Weck Jars, they're making iced coffees, matchas, and shaken espressos in pots and pans, cleaned out, reused pasta sauce jars, Tostitos dip jars, and any glass jar that they're reusing, and any pots and pans they're making these drinks. And people are also pointing out how ridiculously wide and impractical Weck Jars look. And they're saying that Weck Jars look exactly like you're drinking out of food storage containers, which you honestly are. If you look at the website, there's literally food stored in the jars on the website. But it is so funny because now people are showing, oh yeah, don't buy a Weck Jar, just drink out of those random glass Tupperwares that are in your cabinet. And guys, I had to try this out. I washed this out, and yes, I have my Weck Jar now, guys. I put my little flavor packet in my ice cubes. It was after the gym. I went on the Stairmaster at the gym, and now I'm drinking my Weck Jar. When in doubt, pinky out. It's so aesthetic. With my limited edition Tostitos Weck Jar. I just can't get over this trend because it makes me really think about how ridiculous it is that just because people are seeing something on TikTok, they're actually going and spending a bunch of money on glass jars, and it just doesn't add up. And of course, there's plenty of people on TikTok defending their use of Weck Jars for matchas and coffee, and they're honestly grasping at aesthetic glass straws to do so. Weck Jar enthusiasts are saying, I like Weck Jar way before it was cool, and now it's just the new thing to hate on. And everybody always wants to hate on something on the internet. But honestly, using food storage containers for coffee as a status symbol is just hilarious no matter how you spin it. Whether the jars were 50 cents or $50, if you're drinking something out of a food storage container, I'm just gonna side at you. I'm sorry.
I think it's so funny how people pick and choose what they want to hate on and like openly shit talk on the internet. And one of the ones that I just saw, like a video I just saw, like it just rubbed me the wrong way. And it was basically saying how Weck Jars, like these guys right here, are like the rich people mason jar, and it's like out of touch. You don't need to go buy a Weck Jar. Like, no, you don't need to go buy anything, but like it's just weird how we like hyper fixate on things. And it's like, I think I bought two of these for like $25 or $27, and it's like, I also have some of the anthropology glasses. Those are like $16 each. It's like, we can all buy those, but God forbid we find a cute jar on Amazon and all of a sudden it's like, you're so out of touch, just use the mason jar. God forbid I want to romanticize my life just a little bit and drink my coffee out of a cute cup. Okay, I've used this so many times. The amount of money that this probably cost me per day, like the per use cost, is probably a penny at this point. Like, I love this thing. It's perfect size, holds so much ice. I love it.
And with this new Weck Jar craze, nobody is beating the allegations of individuality being dead. And then I've just seen this whole conversation online talking about how nobody is individual anymore. Nobody wants to do their own thing. It's always what they see on the internet. And this is a new version of that. Like, now we can't even use mason jars anymore. We can't even use glasses. It has to say Weck on it. It just makes no sense. I feel like the next trend, it will be the specific fork we have to use, then we have to use this specific spoon, and then the plate, and then it will never stop. Weck Jar defenders also say that they simply cannot use mason jars because the metal lid makes things taste weird and metallic. And I'm not encouraging you to spend a bunch of money on glass jars, but you can also buy plastic lids for mason jars, even though I wouldn't do it. But also, first of all, nobody drinks coffee out of a mason jar with the lid on it. And there's no reason to be having the lid. Like, whatever happened to just stirring the drink? I don't know. And at Starbucks, they literally use plastic containers to do the shaken espressos. So you don't need to like shake all this ice in a glass jar and explode and like go to the hospital and everything. We don't need to do this. And second of all, just drink the coffee. We don't need all these bells and whistles. Like, just drink it. And because the Weck defenders are now bashing mason jars, now there's also the mason jar side of TikTok defending mason jars and talking about how mason jars are like way more sturdy. And then it's this war between mason jar and Weck jar users. And this is all just a ton of uproar over just glass. And that sparked the most hilarious side of this controversy, which is people saying that you buy Tostitos dip, you buy pasta sauce, you buy all the stuff that comes in glass jars, just wash it and drink out of it. It's literally a glass jar. And yes, you probably paid like $6 for Tostitos dip because of inflation, but at least you actually got food inside of the glass instead of just spending $6 on an empty glass jar from weck.com plus shipping.
I have just seen something on this app that has made me unreasonably angry. Weck Jars. Girl, okay, for context, this girl was like, just drinking my daily coffee out of random stuff in my kitchen to convince myself I don't need a Weck jar. Girl, I could have told you you don't need a Weck jar, girlfriend. You use an old pasta sauce jar. Okay, here's what you do. You buy your pasta sauce in the glass jars, you use the pasta sauce, and then you just clean the jar and keep it. It is not that hard, girlfriend. And then someone else was like, I found a dupe for the Weck jar, and then it looked exactly like a Bon Maman jam jar. Just buy the jam and eat the jam and keep the jar. Can we please get our shit together, please? Get it together.
What are we doing? What are we doing, y'all? The internet is literally a circle. It's literally a circle and it's never ending. Weck jars? Y'all, remember mason jars? Remember mason jars? We were doing mason jars in like 2014, like Tumblr era mason jars. Everybody was putting their drinks in mason jars. People, you do not need to buy a jar like this. You can just get a jar from the store. Once you're done with something, once you're literally, this was a marinated artichokes and I use this as a cup. And it has its lid still, and I can still pack stuff in it. This was kimchi. This was kimchi from a farmer's market. I kept the jar, and look, it's perfect. It's like literally perfect for this. You don't need to buy this. This jar, this was soup that my friend's mom sent her. And I said, I want the jar. And she said, you can have it.
This trend really reminds me of when Pinterest made it extremely popular to buy clear containers for cereal and anything you could possibly think of that goes in your pantry. And we really don't need aesthetic cereal boxes. Just eat the cereal. And back then, people were so adamant at defending why they had to use these special cereal containers. And they were saying that it helps the food stay fresh and never go stale. But we all know good and well that you can literally just go to Dollar Tree and buy a pack of like 100 clothespins, those little wooden clothespin things, and just clip the bag inside the cereal box, clip the chip bag, clip the Cheez-Its, clip anything. We don't need all these minimalist. No, that's the funny thing about minimalism, because it's not minimalistic. Okay, spending thousands of dollars on plastic and glass and putting it into your house and then immediately using the package that it came in and just throwing it away. That's not minimalism. That's literally just aesthetic hoarding. We really lost the plot, because when minimalism first started, when it first became a trend, it was actually like true minimalism, but then it just became aesthetic hoarding. And now we have like extreme hoarding like in 2025. But yeah, Weck is the new target of aesthetic hoarding. The funniest thing about aesthetic people is that they never want to admit that they're doing things for aesthetics. They always have every single excuse and defense in the book as to why they need these jars, but they'll never just say that they just like how it looks, or they'll say that they want the status symbol or they want to fit in. Like when they're saying that Weck jars are way better than mason jars because the lid is this way. Oh my goodness, the lid is glass, the lid is not metal. Like, just say that you like the Weck jar because you saw it on TikTok and you saw that an it girl influencer had it. Just please be honest. I feel like it's really about perception, because people want to have their pantries and kitchens look a certain way so that when they invite people over, then the other people will think that they're so like put together, aesthetically pleasing and pristine. But it really doesn't matter. Like, if someone comes to your house and judges you because you have cereal in a cereal box, that's not somebody that you want over your house. And we also are seeing the decline of aesthetic influencers. Like, aesthetic influencers are getting so much hate that they're not even getting the views. Like, they're just getting like hate views. And there's a rise of people actually wanting to see genuine, authentic creators. So people that are just showing real life and not aesthetic life are getting way more views and way more followers on TikTok right now. So just, you don't need to get a Weck jar to get a follower. Like, the people that are drinking out of the Tostitos jars are probably getting way more love and likes and views than the people that are actually going out spending hundreds on Weck jars. This trend is eerily similar to the Airwan video, because if you guys remember, the Airwan $16 glass juice jars were starting to be reused for everything, but at least those actually came with something in it. But it will just never be normal to spend $16 on juice. So yeah, I can't defend Airwan, but like, I guess the Airwan girlies probably put all their Airwan food in Weck jars now.
If you frequent Airwan like me, this is my new favorite life hack. So I love the coconut greens juice from Airwan. Clearly I've purchased a lot of them. And I always thought they were $13 because on the label it says $13. Well, one time I went to like ring up and I saw it charged me $15. I was like, oh, that's weird. So I looked at the label, and underneath the $13 really small, it says $2 bottle deposit, meaning that you get, I guess, $2 back if you return the glass bottles. Well, I would pay way more than $2 for a reusable glass bottle from Airwan. So what I'm doing is I'm filling them up with purified water, putting them in the fridge, and now I have water every morning, so I can just grab it out of the fridge on the way to work and I don't have to think twice about it.
I'm interested to see how the Weck Jar company will respond to this craze, because as of now, it looks like they haven't played into the internet hype surrounding their brand at all. Their website is still staying true to food storage and bread making. Weck is a German company, so I really feel like this is just a case of Americans taking something and running with it and just embarrassing themselves, because it's really like embarrassing, honestly, because I feel like TikTok is literally just a playground where Americans just never beat the allegations of how ridiculous they are. And then people from European countries and all over the world, then they're just looking at the Americans like, okay. The Europeans are constantly like, what's going on? Every other country are just constantly side-eyeing Americans, and it's really embarrassing.
As an avid jar collector, I love hearing people talk about not buying Weck jars. With so much respect, I really don't think you need to. This came with jam, fruit spread. This came empty. I have to fill this myself. I think if you're buying these jars, Weck jars, for making coffee, I say this with only peace and love, you don't need to. You really don't need to. The purpose of these jars is like canning, pickling, sourdough, all of which you can also do in jars that you purchase that come filled with stuff. If you're purchasing these jars for the express purpose of making a coffee, for the same price, buy a jar of jam. Additionally, if you're buying this for coffee and you want to put a lid on it and you want to take it with you somewhere, these come with these glass lids with silicone seals. Then have to seal these little hooks. These little guys, they go on like this, they go on like this. It is just not an as seen on TV infomercial. This is actually not very easy. Not as easy as it is to just... I'll show you my qualifications. I'll show you. In here are my jars. You'll see occasionally true cup. I bought that, that's a cup. I bought that, that's a cup. It's also a cup. I will say I have some of these little tulip sized Weck jars. I do really like these. You can put like just the right amount of yogurt in here. So I really do like these. You can buy small batches of condiments or go to the thrift store. Buy little mason jars. That's a little mason jar I got from a thrift store. Most of what's happening in here is jars that I collected. Jars that I got that were full of things when I got them. This was jam, this was jam, this was sauce, this was sauce, this was kombucha, this was granola, this is a paste jar, this is a paste jar, this was artichoke, honey, this was apple juice, that was jam. Obviously I didn't get the label up very well. That was jam. There's pickle jars in the back, there's olive jars in the back. For the price of buying 2 or 3 of these, could also get 2 or 3 of these. Or, I know Bud Memo has gotten expensive. Go to Home Goods, scour the Home Goods aisle. $5. That's a nice jar. Grey Poupon, when I finish this, that'll be a jar. This is Smuckers. Smuckers. Cute lid, glass jar. This will be a jar in my cabinet when they're done. I'm gonna make some vinaigrette out of these. I definitely got these at Home Goods too. Perfect example, adorable jar. Gonna be good for coffee. These Rayo's soup jars are perfect for coffee to take in the car. They fit perfectly in a cup holder. This, an incredible jar, $4. Big enough for a double shot with ice. Artichokes, I have 2 of these. This one lives in here full of cashews. That's its only purpose. I would say 9 out of 10 coffees I drink from jam jars or pickle jars, olive jars. The other one, a Weck jar. Very often in just a regular cup. Moral of the story is. It's fun. It's nice. This is more fun. And the jam tasted better. Don't feel like you need to buy these when these come for free with the jam you buy inside.
And another side of this whole Weck Jar craze on the internet is Weck Jar dupes. Weck Jar dupes are popping up everywhere, and apparently IKEA has them now. And I really hope that this doesn't cause any stampedes or anything if people try to get like, we have to go to IKEA to get the Weck Jar dupe, get it! But I really hope that this doesn't cause any glass smashing fights or anything. Because we already know what happened with the Stanleys. People fighting, stealing Stanleys from little kids and elderly ladies and everything. Let me know what you guys think about this new craze and status symbol. Will you be hopping on the Weck Jar wave, or will you be drinking out of literally anything else in your cabinet? Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys all in my next video. Bye guys!